Let the games begin.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Whistles and Wisdom podcast. Today's episode is going to be pressure, power, and public perception. The reason we're calling that today is because we're talking about 3 stories within sports that I feel bring some aspects of leadership that we're not really talking about and need to be put in the forefront in order to build some better understanding of what's happening. First off, we have a serious trend of off-field issues happening with the Georgia Bulldogs football program. Second, we have this ongoing Aaron Rodgers situation, which has developed into a public perception fiasco for the Jets and Aaron Rodgers as a player. And then lastly, we have the PGA and LIV Golf culture battle happening thanks to it's coming to light again thanks to the Masters tournament happening this week. So, without further ado, let's get started with the first story: the Georgia football program and its leadership crisis. So, we'll start in Athens, Georgia. So, recently, a Georgia football player was once again arrested. This time, it was for reckless driving and racing. And it's only one of the latest within this trend happening with the Georgia Bulldog program. Since the start of 2023, there have been over 30 driving related incidents involving Georgia football players. Charges are ranging from speeding and reckless driving to DUIs, and that includes some high profile names like Jalen Carter and their most recent acquisition, Nitro Tuggle. His real name's Natarian Tuggle, but we'll call him Nitro for short. So Jalen Carter, as we remember during the draft process, it came out that he had a speeding, reckless driving incident that resulted in the death of 2 people. He was later released with probation and a few $100s in fines. Now, the most recent Nitro Tuggle, he was clocked in at going 90 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone. Because there have been almost 30 incidences since 2023, that's in just the last 2 years, and most of them are occurring in the beginning months of the year, January, February, March. It's hard to say that these are isolated incidences and there's not a underlying cultural issue that's related to just this. It feels like an outcry from the players to have more help when it comes to the mental side and the emotional side of playing sports at an elite level. Now, head coach Kirby Smart has been vocal. He's been saying to the team that they've been working to address the issues with better education and stricter consequences for incidences involving reckless driving, speeding, and just public endangerment. The most recent ones have resulted in team suspensions, and we'll talk about that in a little bit about what that really does, if it does anything. So, as a coach, there becomes a moment where you need to have off-field matters resolved through leadership and through culture set within practice, within team meetings, within just everything that a college program is involved. So at some point, Kirby Smart has fallen when it comes to the accountability aspect. So a piece that people don't normally understand when it comes to athletics, athletes, especially in these high intense sports like football, mixed martial arts, boxing, anything that is high energy. I would take baseball out of it. I would take soccer out of it, or football, for the rest of the world. So the tone set by the program is intense, is visceral. During the season, there were times where commentators were talking about Bloody Tuesdays, where the the team was going through full contact drills, and it was a way to emphasize the toughness and tenacity of the defense, and to make the team more aggressive in a sense. And that was only translated over from what Coach Kirby Smart was trying to portray when it comes to his messages and his pregame speeches, halftime speeches. Everything that he was about aggression and toughness. Unfortunately, these players, they buy in, they get ready for games and get ready for a season with this message. And then they go through the season. It's great because they have a way to expel that energy that's been created from the messaging and the testosterone and the let's go get them. But then there's nothing to help them decompress after the games, after the season. Hence why these incidences are happening in those first months after the season's over. I mean, we have the national championship is sometime in January, and then all of a sudden these incidents happen January, February, and March. They're not happening during season. They're happening in the beginning of the off season when there's no accountability, and they're trying to decompress after a tough season, and unfortunately they're going at it in a way that puts themselves and other people in danger. So now, is there a way to fix this? Yes, it is a long process, because just as it takes a long time for it to be instilled in players, it's going to take just as much time, if not more, to take it out of them. This doesn't say that it's going to take away from the Georgia football program and their capabilities as players, but they need to have the resources and they need to have the tools in order to decompress. This is a big sports psychology issue. You ramp the players up, you have them compete at that high level with that intensity, but you need to be able to give them the tools in order to decompress after games, in order to just go back out into the world and be normal people, even though they're some of the top athletes in the country. It's as leadership, you need to make sure your players have the tools to for not just what you they need to have the tools for not just the game itself and competing. They need to have the tools for off the field. They need to have the tools for in the classroom. They need to have the tools. You're responsible for every aspect of their life, not just the football part. I'm not going to say that Kirby Smart does not care about his players. You can tell tremendously that he cares about their success and he cares about them being good people. But unfortunately, he has fallen short when it comes to the sports psychology part and the emotional, spiritual side of a player. That, let's face it, these kids are 18, 19, 20 years old. They're still trying to figure it out. A lot of them are getting paid a lot of money. That's why a lot of them have these nice cars that go really fast. And it's just becoming a perfect storm for these situations to keep coming and keep progressing. Now, is there going to be an immediate fix? No. Can it be fixed? Absolutely. It's just going to be a matter of the dedication to that off the field switch. So a lot of people in sports, especially when it comes to football, they want to talk about how a player can flip a switch. Now, this saying can like a misnomer. It's not as easy as saying, "Hey, you're on the field, become this animal and be an amazing player." It's not that easy. That player is created from this first day they start playing the sport, and it is molded and manipulated all the way up until present time. during a week, you can schedule your practices and create your practices a certain way where you ramp up the physicality to prepare them for the game so they're a physical, aggressive team. You can, if a coach can do that, ramp them up, they need to be able to bring them back down to normalcy so they don't just constantly stay at this state of anxiety and intensity. All these incidents are telling me, especially the speeding and it's an adrenaline rush. They have the adrenaline going through the season, and their brains are yelling at them. They want more of that adrenaline, and they're trying to find it in ways that are unhealthy. Going fast in cars, you know, some people that are extreme sport athletes, they go into skydiving, they race motorcycles. It's the same concept. It's just that we're talking about football players. So, you know, Georgia has a problem on their hands, and I feel like this isn't just within the Georgia football program. This could definitely be across the country, and it's unfortunate because with the Jalen Carter situation, unfortunately, a couple people did lose their lives, but and it could definitely happen again with uh, more players leaning towards this adrenaline rush through reckless driving, and it's just going to be it. I wouldn't be surprised if more incidences happen. I mean, the season's starting to ramp up. Teams are starting to spring practice. I don't see it happening from now until the end of the season. So, and the organization, the programs are not setting players up for success because all they're doing is they're ramping them up. They're going to make great football players, get them drafted, get them to where they make a lot of money, and the problems are only going to get bigger with more money that you get. You know, more money, more problems, right? And so it's unfortunate. I hope, and I know, I'm pretty sure Georgia Bulldogs organization is trying to find a way to mitigate these problems. Obviously, they're giving them legal help. The players need it. A lot of these kids don't have the they don't have the know-how to try and fight these cases themselves, and so it is an unfortunate story. I feel sorry for these players, especially the ones that are getting suspended from the team, because now you've plucked these players from their home, put them in a new town, gave them these aspirations for their future, and in one instance all of that has come crumbling down. Their support system is gone, and if they don't move back home, because now if they're suspended from the team they do not have scholarship anymore. If that occurs, their support system in that new town is gone. They have to go back home. Who knows if their support system is big enough or is good enough for them to work through this. And it creates a downhill spiral that you're basically throwing a person in the trash pretty much when that happens. So hope Kirby Smart and his staff will try to stay away from those suspensions or terminations from the team, because that's going to create just a bigger problem where it seems like Georgia football is just running through players, getting what they need out of them, and then throwing away in the trash when they become a problem. And that becomes even a bigger PR problem for them that they probably wouldn't be able to um, work their way out of. So that's Georgia. That's what's going on with Georgia football right now. Obviously, they're preparing for their next season, but with all these incidents happening, I wouldn't be surprised if some players are going to be afraid of, especially the parents. If players' parents are going to be worried about their kid going to Georgia and playing for Georgia. So, next story, I want to move away from college football and move towards the NFL. Now, Aaron Rodgers, as many people in the sports world know, he's a very free spirited individual, free thinker. He has lots of opinions about things, probably comes from his education at Cal. And the Aaron Rodgers saga only continues to become more and more intertwined with the league the more that he branches out and is looking at different places to play, especially after the Jets got rid of him. And there's been stories that he's going to go to the Steelers, he's going to go to the Vikings, he's going to go to all these quarterback needy teams. But as the teams start making moves, that narrative starts to kind of fine tune itself. So one of the teams that was rumored he was going to go to was New York Giants. They signed Jameis Winston to a contract. It's like in the teens, I think, for the amount of money he's making. He's going to be the backup. And then they signed Russell Wilson to a bigger contract that is more congruent with a starting quarterback salary. So based on their moves and how much money they're giving each player, it seems like they're set with their quarterback room. They're not going to bring in an Aaron Rodgers. They're done. So that's gone. Minnesota Vikings have come out and said we're not interested in Aaron Rodgers, even though everyone's like, "Hey, it could be a ploy." It very well could be, but it you can't. At some point, you have to look at the moves that they're making and see what that tells us. So before Aaron Rodgers to the Vikings became a thing, they 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 traded away Sam Darnold. He's now Sam Darnold is with the Seahawks. So he got his big contract with the Seahawks. And that move showed that the Vikings were going to go towards um, really putting development into their rookie that they're very high on, JJ McCarthy. So now does them getting rid of Sam Darnold and just staying with JJ McCarthy mean that they're going to stick with that quarterback and they don't have a veteran on staff that they're going to be comfortable with to come in as backup? That doesn't mean that Aaron Rodgers still isn't in play, because the Vikings could say, "Hey, we don't want him." So people are going to be like, "Well, what's wrong with him?" And then they're not going to want to sign him. And then all of a sudden you can get Aaron Rodgers for real cheap because there's no market for him anymore. Typical business negotiation tactic. And then the one that I think is the most interesting and the one I think is going to happen, disclaimer, I am a Steelers fan. My household is a Pittsburgh Steelers household. So the Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers is intriguing. And I think there is a situation for the Steelers that could set the foundation for long-term success for the team. So Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers means a couple things. You bring in a veteran that's probably going to be around for pretty much a year by year basis. You're going to probably put down on, I would say, I mean, they've already agreed to terms of a contract. It hasn't been signed, which means he's not part of the team. It's just that him and Aaron Rodgers' agent, because I don't think Aaron Rodgers is putting himself in those type of meetings. He's having his agent do it. I mean, that's what his agent's for. He trusts him. And the agent and Omar Khan, the con artist, as some people will call him, those two sides have agreed to terms on how much the contract is, length of contract, so on and so forth. So, in principle, that deal is done. Now, Aaron Rodgers is not the long-term answer for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's where it could get interesting. So, in the past, more recent history, there have been several examples of veteran quarterbacks on staff that keep the team competitive, make the team very desirable to free agents and outside sources, while they develop a rookie quarterback that's going to be cheaper, a rookie quarterback underneath them. Once that rookie quarterback is ready to go, that's when the that's when they get rid of the veteran, unload that contract, stay with the rookie who's on a rookie contract, which is going to be much cheaper than their second contract. So you have that for a few years, and then with that extra salary cap space, since it is a hard cap, they're going to bring in talent, extra veteran talent, to now bolster the rest of the team around a young quarterback that they feel is ready because they were trained under a veteran quarterback that was successful. So under that dynamic, which most recently happened at Aaron Rodgers' old team, not the Jets, the Packers, with him and Jordan Love, and we see how well Jordan Love is doing. I believe the Steelers are going to try and do that here. So I could see them signing Aaron Rodgers to probably 2-3 years, probably two, large money up front, try to make the cap hit as minimal as possible, because I think they probably have about 20 to 30 million left on their salary cap. And so sign Aaron Rodgers. He's going to make your team competitive. He's going to be an upgrade from what you've had in the past right away. Regardless of what happened in New York, I'll talk about that in a little bit of what really transpired and what kind of led to the team dysfunction. So Steelers sign Rodgers. They have the 21st pick in the first round of the draft, and then they don't have another draft pick until pick number 83 in the third. If they want to get that quarterback of the future that they feel comfortable with, it is going to be that 21st pick. Now, the Steelers have other issues that they need to address. A running back concern, obviously. So that could be addressed in the first round, but that could also be addressed in later rounds. It is running back heavy. It's just that the number of top level quarterbacks is very slim. Based on the analysts, the first pick is going to be Cam Ward. That's going to be the first quarterback on. Second quarterback is going to be Shadur Sanders, supposedly either Shadur Sanders or Jackson Dart. And it's probably going to go to either it's probably going to go to the Browns. The Browns are probably going to take quarterback, and then the Giants are going to take, even though they need a quarterback, probably going to take Travis Hunter. If Shadur Sanders doesn't go in those top five, I could see him falling all the way down to the Steelers. Now, that doesn't say a team is going to pick Shadur Sanders because they see him falling. Like, well, that's going to be a great future quarterback for us, even though they may have a quarterback that they like already. So, what I see happening, Steelers are going to the Steelers are going to get down to their 21st pick. They're not going to move around from it because after Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders, most of the quarterbacks after that are kind of like pick your flavor. They're all going to be relatively the same. Just which flavor do you want? Okay, so you got Jackson Dart, had the Ole Miss offense, which is taking deep shots, lots of throws. He's a good runner, great player, right? Then you have who I think should be that fourth quarterback. A lot of people will disagree on this, but Will Howard. I think Will Howard and Jackson Dart would be very similar players for you. It's just that Jackson Dart has more explosive ability when it comes to his legs and his arm because he has experience throwing those type of throws in game situations. And then I think the biggest knock with Will Howard is that a lot of people are going back to his days. What was it? Kansas? Oh, K-State. That's what it was. a lot of people are going back to his days at K-State where all he did was run because he had no weapons to throw to, and then all of a sudden he transfers to Ohio State and then has arguably the best team around him ever assembled thanks to the 20 million that Ohio State wanted to spend on their team, and all of a sudden wins the national championship. So what changed in order to create this star player? It was the people around him. So a lot of people are putting the credit on the people around him. However, you are still getting a 6'4", 240-pound quarterback who can run and can make all the throws that are needed. If a quarterback is getting to the league, they can make all the throws. It's just a matter of what is going to be the skill set that they have that you want to emphasize within your offense. Now, that's when we have to look at Artie Smith, Arthur Smith. Artie's a little nickname for him, but Arthur Smith and his offense. It's a stretch wide zone team with play action, so a lot of deep throws. You go out and get DK Metcalf. He's a deep ball threat. You have Austin is a speedster, and then you have George Pickens, who's one of the best contested catching receivers in the game. So with that group of players, and then you got Pat Freiermuth, who's also really good downfield. When you have all that, it's just setting up for play action type offense to blossom. And now you just need someone to run it, make the right decisions. And I think that Aaron Rodgers will do great. You can bring in a college quarterback that can develop, and let's face it, they all need to develop. There's going to be many guys that come in and say, hey, I got it. We can just run. But out of, like in recent history and recent memory, you have CJ Stroud did well his rookie season. Sophomore season, he dropped. And then you have Jaden Daniels this last season. He led the Washington Commanders and led them through very intense game situations. They came out victorious. That doesn't happen often. Do not make the outlier rule. Those two players are outliers. There have been several other quarterbacks drafted within those same draft class that don't even have a team right now. So in the sense of not making the outlier the rule, get yourself a decent college quarterback, develop them and make them a pro. And who better to learn from just from example and osmosis than four-time MVP, Super Bowl winning quarterback who, yes, may be a little quirky, but is going to be a leader of your team nonetheless. And I think the biggest challenge for Mike Tomlin with that setup is just going to be managing the personalities. And he's had to do that in the past. He had Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, Martavius Bryant. Those were all personalities that he had to manage, and they were successful. So let leadership, let the coaching staff do their thing, and let them finally grow something instead of just trying to plug and play talent for a year to see if it fixes anything. It's not going to fix anything. That's where the Jets went wrong. They have a culture problem at the top of the hierarchy here. They don't know what they want to be their culture. They do not know what they want their team to look like. And because of that, they're just plugging and playing talent in places that they feel is going to, hey, this is the best available guy. He's going to do something right. But football is a team sport. It's the best team sport on the planet because you need all 50 guys to be on the same page. That's just the players. Not to mention a coaching staff of 20, front office staff of God knows how many. So it takes an entire organization to be on the same page in order for there to be success at a rate at which the ownership is wanting. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to bring Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. He's going to bring his culture and we're going to implement it and boom, we're going to win. That's not how it works. You have all these other people that have their hands in the cookie jar and they want to say, they want to have ownership of what's happening, and that's just not how it's going to work. The culture has to be set from the top down. It can't go from bottom up. If the ownership has an idea what they want for their team, and that goes down to their front office, the front office understands it. They bring in a coaching staff, they bring in players that they feel match that kind of mentality, then you're running. You're up and running. You're basically playing with fire now. You started a fire, you had the culture set, now you're just adding fuel to keep it burning. Unfortunately, there have been too many examples of teams acquiring talent. They just want to acquire talent. They want the best player at whatever position available, and they think that's going to fix things. That is not how it works. You have many more examples of leadership changing. Leadership is changing, and that is leading to overall organizational change that then leads them to sustained success, not just a splash in the pan, sustained success. That's why I'm really interested to see what happens with Mike Vrabel in New England, how he's going to change that program around. Pete Carroll in Las Vegas, how he's going to change that around. We've already seen what Jim Harbaugh has done with his Chargers for a season. That has changed. They're actually winning games that in the past they usually wouldn't. The Broncos, with all their issues, they're still competitive because they have a strong leader at the helm. It's there are more examples of leadership making a change than players making a change. Okay. And I really hope some of these organizations will finally understand that, because then it's going to lead to a better product on the field. You're not going to have such a wide disparity of talent or wide disparity of teams, and you're going to have more competitive games. We're not going to have we're going to have two teams that are 14-2, and then you have the rest of the league is going to be under 500 at best. It's going to be an interesting offseason. We are still waiting on what Aaron Rodgers is going to decide, whether he's going to retire or he's going to sign somewhere. Where's that going to be? From excuse me, from what I see from the outside looking in, if he retires, he retires. He's done. He's not going to go back to football. He's not going to coach. He doesn't want to coach. He's explicitly told that in the past. He doesn't want to coach. He also has so many business ventures and so many things that he's invested in. He's got things to do. If he signs and wants to still play, it's going to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then the Steelers are going to draft a quarterback in the first round. That is what's going to happen. You can mark it as, my opinion. You can have a different opinion. That's fine. It's just the pieces are setting up too well not to fit into the puzzle. And so, we'll see how this offseason progresses. We'll see how the draft progresses. And hopefully at the end of all this, all parties involved are going to be happy with whatever decisions are made. Now, the last story of this week. This will be the last thing we talk about. Unfortunately, we do not have a interview lined up for today, so it's just going to be the news stories, and we're going to leave it at that. If you know if you know anybody that wants to join in, we can have great conversations about this stuff. More than happy to have those conversations, and hopefully that will help grow this little venture of ours. So this week being Masters Week, I want to talk about the PGA versus LIV, let's say the battle for golf's soul. Okay. not to be dramatic, yes, you're battling for golf's soul. The PGA has been the staple of professional golf for centuries. And just recently, the Saudi Arabian investment group has created this new thing called LIV Golf. Okay, they they bought players from the PGA, contracts worth millions of dollars, guaranteed contracts worth millions of dollars, to have them come over, compete in their experimental league. And there was a lot of pushback from the PGA and the PGA players for this because it's new. The PGA didn't like it because it was competing against them, and it was taking away a lot of their better players, and it had a short term diminished value of the PGA itself. No one wanted to watch it anymore because the big names that they're so used to watching are gone. And then LIV Golf, unfortunately, was near impossible to try and find in order to see those top players. So it was a mismanagement of talent and a mismanagement of expectations, really, for both leagues. Now, where this gets interesting is the money involved. Okay. At the beginning of the episode, we wanted to call about public perception, right? Now, the PGA was firm in their stance that players cannot go over to LIV, and then the LIV players cannot come back over to PGA because of the conflict, right? If you took that money from LIV, you are gone. You cannot play on the PGA Tour anymore. In any tournament, any invitationals, the biggest tradition for the Masters is former champions can have an automatic bid in following tournaments. Now, they took that away because of them going over to LIV Golf and doing what they thought was best for their families. And if I was a good enough golf player and LIV Golf came up and said, "Hey, we're going to give you a guaranteed contract worth $100 million. We just want you to play 3 rounds of golf in a week or so. It's up to you when you can come out. You get more time spent with your family." I would be hard pressed to find anybody that says no to that kind of situation. So PJ was sitting over there saying, "Oh, how dare you guys take the money? How dare you try to better your family? That's not, you're basically dead to us." And then all of a sudden, LIV Golf came over and said, "Hey, let's make the PGA Tour better. We're going to invest into the PGA Tour for 1.6 billion. Is that okay?" And the PGA Tour said, "I kind of like it." However, LIV Golf had some stipulations attached to that, which are being fought over right now as we speak. So LIV Golf wanted to put a member of their sports. So the Saudi investment group wanted to put a member of their sports team, their sports business team, on the board at the PGA, the board of directors. And they wanted to reinstate all the players on LIV Golf to be able to compete at every PGA Tour event. PGA Tour said okay to money, okay to letting the players back on the PGA Tour. But when they said, "Hey, we want to put one of our guys on your board of directors," they freaked out and said, "No, thank you. You can go kick rocks." This is where this culture clash is happening. So the PGA Tour is filled with tradition, and they want to keep everything the same. They want to, it's business as usual, right? And then LIV Golf comes in, and they have, they're allowing their players to wear shorts. They're playing music on the course. It's becoming more entertainment than just competing in golf. And now LIV Golf wants to put a member in charge of that on the board of directors with the PGA Tour. So now you have two very contrasting ideals and just kind of viewpoints for the sport trying to come together and negotiate a deal. So where this will go, who knows? All I know is that the PGA Tour golf itself needs to appeal to the younger generation. The younger generation's attention span and their idea, they wanted to digest their sports. If they're interested in sports, they're going to digest it through things like social media, the TikToks, Snapchat, and so on and so forth. And the PGA Tour, as it stands, isn't suited for that kind of distribution. LIV Golf has been trying to create the entertainment aspect. That's why they're doing 54. LIV, LIV is Roman numerals for 54 because they play 54 holes instead of the traditional 72. Wait, 72 for the PGA. Make it shorter, make it more intense, have the best names competing against each other, increase the entertainment value. That's what they're trying to do in order to create a better environment for the younger demographic. PGA Tour is staying the same, structure is the same, the televised events look the same. It has been the same. And that's all well and good for your older demographic that has been just instilled in PGA and its culture, but it's hard to bring in new demographics to that with the increase in popularity of things like Top Golf and people trying to interject more youthful products into the sport. It's almost like the Happy Gilmore effect. In the movie, I know it's a movie, it's fictional, but it is almost playing out in real time in front of us. You have Happy Gilmore, who is the complete opposite of what the PGA is representing, but with the introduction of a Happy Gilmore type player, you're bringing in different sponsors, you're bringing in different demographics that you can appeal to. You're growing the sport without having to put real too much work into it. You're just allowing a certain player to play. Now, take away Happy Gilmore in the comedic fictional aspect and insert LIV Golf. It's the same thing. LIV Golf is youthful, more entertainment. PGA is tradition and um, they're still making money. It's not a bankrupt business, but it's still a complicated intertwining of cultures that isn't just going to take the Saudis saying, here's all the money you could ever imagine, ever, and let us do what we want to do. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how that transpires, especially with the Masters happening. The Masters is basically the start of the golf season. We're going to start getting more major events coming up. And with each major event, people are going to want to see the best players competing for those trophies and the prestige that comes with winning those tournaments. So if the PGA wants to get something done and LIV Golf wants to get something done now, it's going to have to. If they want to get something done in general, it's going to have to be sooner rather than later because the PGA is going to need. They're going to be in the heart of their season, and they need to try and find ways to appeal to younger demographic before we hit this lull in the off season when most people can't go out and play golf. I mean, you have pretty much the entire north half of the country in the United States is you can't play golf because the weather conditions are terrible. And so right now is peak time. I mean, I live in Idaho and we're having perfect days for golf. And I know there's people that would want to go play. but you got to build the interest somewhere. It's got to come from somewhere. And I think LIV Golf as a concept is a good way to start. It's just how is that going to incorporate into such a established, like, how is that going to incorporate into such an established entity as the PGA Tour? It's going to be interesting. I hope something gets done. It's got to. There's too much money on the table for both sides to walk away, and too much growth for both sides for them to walk away. So something's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And it's going to be interesting to see how both leadership groups are going to align. So just to wrap it up, so we had the Georgia Bulldogs story. As unfortunate as there are ways to kind of counteract the sport, the psychology involved with players competing at an elite level. I think the Jets are learning our second story. I think the Jets are learning the hard way. Talent is not going to always fix your problems. You got to look inward, got to look the man in the mirror and figure out, hey, what can I do to make this better instead of looking outwards and putting blame on, hey, I don't have a good offensive line. I don't have a good quarterback. Let's just fix those problems. And that should solve everything. It's not going to be the case. And then, as we just talked about, PGA Tour, the war that they're waging against LIV Golf is kind of it's not necessary. They're trying to save face with their older demographic, but I think at the end of the day, we just need to put out a better product on the course, and the better product is going to be with the best talent and creating a more entertaining environment for viewers, for patrons, just anybody that wants to digest golf as a whole needs a better product. And like I said, there's too much money involved for either party to decide, we don't want to do this anymore. We're just going to do our own thing. So, every situation is different, but depending on how much each side uses the public space as their soundboard for their discretions or digressions. What word is that? We'll see. The more they use the public as their soundboard for their issues, the more that these stories are going to become monsters of their own. So, the truth, anyone can stand up there at a press conference and look like the leader and voice their opinion and sound like they know what they're talking about. But the truth is that the quiet people are the ones that are the strongest of the leaders, the ones that sit back and observe and see how things are going to transpire. Because with the PJ and LIV experience, you have the more someone talks about it, the more that the public is going to push back and be like, well, we want to see these guys play. And the more PGA Tour fights on it, the more the public's going to fight back. And then eventually there's going to be something done or said that's going to create animosity on both sides. So they just need to figure out their problems behind closed doors, negotiate, sit at the table, have a conversation, and figure it out. The public doesn't need to be involved in everything that happens, even though the public wants to be involved. There's certain things that we don't need to be a fly on the wall. As much as it would be fun, we love seeing the behind the scenes stuff, but this is something that needs to happen behind closed doors. Leadership needs to meet and just let it out. Now, so for this week, this is going to be the last of the Whistles and Wisdom podcast. Next week, if everything goes as planned, we will have a guest for you. Don't know who that's going to be yet, but hopefully it's going to be someone that you guys will find very interesting. Still try and find someone that's going to be focused on leadership, someone that's going to be focused on building and developing their players or their staff and creating the best product possible for public consumption. So until then, I'm Gregory Olin, and you have been listening to Whistles and Wisdom podcast. Remember to subscribe, follow. Most importantly, try to share it with people. We want this to spread as much as we can. And as always, think big, be bold, and bet on yourself.